All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Pod. I'm really fired up today. I'm with a special guest, the guest who's known me the longest. I'm with my brother, Paul Wall, the Iceman. Welcome to the pod, brother.
Thanks. So glad to be here.
It's good to have you. So I was trying to think, like I was driving, and I'm like, how am I going to introduce my brother? Because you do, it's like director, actor, teacher, speaker, creative, writer, performer, voice actor, the list goes on and on and on. It's creative genius over here.
I don't know about genius, but creative. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so for those that have read my book, you might be familiar with my brother's voice. He actually is the narrator of Holy Shit, We're Alive. And, I know I've gotten a lot of really good positive feedback of how entertaining the audio experience is of
good.
that.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I was like, okay, what am I gonna ask my brother? Because it's like, there's so many different things I look back at, like your life and your journey and your experience, and there's so many like different roads you've traveled down, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different experiences, things. And then one thing that kind of just came to my mind was like, that I admire about you is your level of commitment to your path. There's a lot of, to do what you're doing, it's really hard to break into that industry in a lot of different ways, but you just have like this resilience in some capacities. One thing I admire that I wish I have is you have this ability, and that when you like get locked in on a project, you can stay up, you can just stay up for like 2 days straight.
Yeah.
And just like in this creative flow, inspiration, whether that's writing or voice acting. For me, it's like as soon as 10 o'clock hits, I'm like worthless. And it's funny because Denise, my twin sister, she stays up late and can work late hours. And I'm like, the moment the sun goes down, my brain stops working. And so one thing I just, really want to admire and acknowledge about you is your like ability to like just go all in and just flow. So my question is, when you're getting creative inspiration, whether that be for writing or a project or all the different projects you do, is it something you can kind of tap into at any time, or does it just come in and you're like, everyone stop everything, I have to go lock in, because it's kind of like, it's a fleeting experience. So what is that experience like for you?
Yeah. For the longest time, I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't pay attention in school. I didn't care about a lot of subjects. Like I couldn't just like sit still and learn. And then when I found the creative arts, and when I found filmmaking, and when I found writing, something clicked and something changed to where I was so passionate about it and so excited for it that I would just lose track of reality. Like I would lose track of everything that's going on around me. So I'd sit down and start writing, and I was so excited to write this script. And next thing I know, it's like 3 a.m. And I'm like, I should probably go to bed. I was like, well, let me finish this scene. And then I keep writing, and then it's 5:30 a.m. And I'm like, dude, I really have to go to sleep because I'm going to be dead tomorrow. But there's a sense that when I'm locked into what I really love, it's not hard. Like it's just, yeah. I'm just like, the world is gone and I'm just living it and doing it. Whereas all through school and college, I couldn't focus on anything I wasn't interested in. And I thought, I was like, well, I just have ADD or I have ADHD. Well, that's not necessarily the case. What it was is that I hadn't found my passion. And then once I did, it was just like, reality disappeared, and I was just like in it.
Yeah. And did that come, from my perspective, it seems like that came when you were in high school?
It started. Yeah. I mean, I was doing sports with you and Jeff growing up and thinking sports was like really what I wanted to do. And then something happened in high school where, and to this day, I still don't even know what happened. I remember I was on my way to the first day of the meeting for football, and I looked up and saw auditions for the school musical, and like somehow just turned around and just like went and auditioned. And that was when I got cast as Captain Hook in Peter Pan. And something happened to where I was like, oh, I really like this. Like, this is fun. And so that's where it started, was high school. I started feeling like, oh, I like performing and I like acting.
So you went to the audition with no experience?
I wasn't a singer. Wasn't an actor.
And you got the lead role.
I played Captain Hook.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of it was just channeling Dustin Hoffman from Hook because it was one of my favorites as a kid. But it's like learning how to put that into performance.
How was that received by the other theater kids? Was there was there because it kind of gets kind of cliquey, I'm assuming.
Yeah, especially in high school. Yeah, in high school there was definitely a sense of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, I'm just trying new things. I'm just trying things out. And so yeah, there was a sense of like, wait, why are you doing this? But it quickly dissolved and like it was okay.
Yeah, once you were performing and throwing down.
Yeah.
So again, the question is on that piece, like, does the creative, because you've written a movie. What's your movie called again?
Royal Facade.
Royal Facade, right? That's on Amazon.
Amazon, Tubi, all over. Yeah.
Yep. And you wrote that. Did you write? You wrote it,
I directed it, produced it,
and you produced it, and you're in it, right? So, question is, do you go out and seek the creativity, or does it come to you?
Ooh. Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey these past 3 years trying to understand the film industry, because I've always been an actor, at least for the last 20 years or so. But transitioning into film was hard because I'd seen so many films I loved and I wanted to be in films and I wanted to make films, but I didn't know the industry or the market or how it worked. So I went out seeking inspiration, and now that I have a grasp on it, now it comes. So I had to go seek and I had to go figure it out and learn the industry and go look at things and go watch things and go be on set. And now it's at a place where I can just sit in my office and all of a sudden I'll have an idea and I'll write 15 pages of a screenplay just right there.
That's so fascinating to me because like in my world of like personal development and sales, the way I'm looking at it is like, oh, you actually committed to the process of understanding what it is, like doing the hard thing and maybe like watching films that you might not have been inspired by. Yep. And like, you got life and work and family things going on, but like really, respecting the process of kind of learning a baseline fundamental experience. And then and it kind of seems like everyone in our family is good at this way. It's like once we kind of like have the foundational constructs of kind of like where the edges are, like here's the walls. Okay, now I understand what canvas I'm playing on. Now I can create on top of it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's kind of been the way for you to kind of create on that piece. Which piece of because it's like, I know that voice acting pays the bills a lot of the ways. You do a lot of, you did like a Kamala ad, which was cool. I know you do like a lot of big stuff like that. Which piece of the creative act for you is actually the easiest, most flow, most inspiring for you? Like, what do you like to do the most?
Ooh. When I first moved out to LA with Melanie, with my wife, I was thinking, I was going to be an on-camera actor. That's what I loved doing. I loved being on camera. And when I was out there and found voiceover, and voiceover started paying the bills, I thought, oh, well, if this is what's paying the bills and it's still acting, this is going to be my favorite. But after 10 years of that now, if you gave me the choice, like, what do you want to do? It's still going to be on camera.
Yeah.
It's still going to be on camera acting. And even with directing, now that I've directed a feature film and a couple shorts and a TV pilot, like directing has now become something that I'm like, oh man, I love directing film and TV.
Yeah.
Because it's all problem solving all day long.
Yeah.
Start to finish, everyone's approaching you with questions and going, how do we do this? And how do we do this? And how do we do this? And I have to be the one to go, well, let's do this. Let's do this. And then it's all on me.
Yeah. Going back to the voice acting piece, I remember when you were kind of going all in on that. What was the moment where you realized like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this? Because I would assume, I don't know much about the industry, but I would assume that's like a probably pretty tough industry to crack.
Yeah.
Because you probably have like, there's a couple of A-list top guys and they probably get 90-80% of the work.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just, they know what you're getting. Right. How do you crack an industry like that that's so condensed?
Well, it's weird because timing dictated everything with that industry. So I jumped in at like 2016 and spent 4 years just trying to figure out the industry. And like you said, there were tons of people who, were auditioning like crazy, and there's actors in LA. And if you don't live in LA, you're not getting LA jobs. And if you don't live in New York, you're not getting New York jobs. And sometimes they're bi-coastal, but not really. And so everyone kind of had their own little market. And so that's where I started. Was I was living in LA. So I just jumped into the LA market and didn't make a lot of headway, but was learning a lot about the industry and figuring
So you're just like saying yes to everything?
Everything. I was doing free work. I was doing work that was just like nobody else would do because like it doesn't pay anything. And I'm like, well, I want to know. I want to learn. So like I'll just do it. And so I was just doing anything I could, taking any job I could. And in doing so, started meeting some people and making connections. And then eventually the pandemic hit. And once the pandemic hit, I had already built up things enough and moved back to Utah to where I built a studio in my house. And so when the pandemic hit and all the brick and mortar sound booths shut down in LA and New York and all over, they were like, well, we need someone with a home studio. And I was like, well, I built one. So all of a sudden, all that work that was going to the A-list, B-list, C-list LA actors couldn't go to them anymore because they couldn't record it. They didn't have a space. So I started picking up all that work. And in that transition, that was enough to launch me up to where now that's my main income. Is I do voiceover for a living. Like that's my job, and everything else is just bread and butter. And so it was a crazy confluence of taking all the work I could get, busting my tail. I would stay up. So Mel would go to bed at 10:30 with the kids. Everyone would be asleep, and I'd go back to work. And I'd be up from 11 till 2, 3, 4 a.m., sometimes 4 nights a week, just researching the industry and how does this work and who are the players and what do I need to do. And I did that for 2 years until I finally started like booking and getting better agents and moving up, and people started knowing my name and casting directors started learning my name, and I started booking. So that with the pandemic created this like perfect vacuum of success that just skyrocketed me.
No, I love that because it really is such a testament to like on a fundamental principle of just going all in, and just one of my favorite quotes is whoever takes the most action wins.
Love that.
And it's just saying yes to every job, even if you don't want to. It's staying up late, even when you're tired, when you got the kids. It's doing every single thing, learning the experience, saying yes, getting your reps in. And there really is no way to override the beginning reps. You have
There's
to just
no
say
shortcut to hard work.
Yeah. What's the quote? It's luck is when preparation meets what is it? It's luck is when preparation meets timing or something like that. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna butcher it. I can't believe I'm screwing this up, but
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's when preparation, when you put in the work and effort nonstop. That's what creates luck. And it's actually one thing you breeze past pretty quickly that I thought was powerful was you did that for 4 years. Right? Most people aren't willing to do that. Most people are like, oh, I'm gonna try this for a couple months. I'm gonna see how it goes. It's funny because a lot of people that listen to this are in door to door. And when I would recruit door-to-door guys, they're like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'll go out. I'll go try it for a weekend. And I'm like, don't come.
Yeah.
Don't come. Because it's like, it's so hard and there's so many lessons and you can't learn it in a weekend. And, from your perspective, for you to really kind of, you are reaping today from efforts from half a decade ago.
100%.
Yeah.
And the thing that I keep thinking back on was how many risks I took in those early years that didn't make sense.
What would be an example of one?
So for example, we had moved back to Utah and I got a phone call from a buddy who was a sound engineer. And he said, hey, my buddy is testing out these new microphones that he's going to do some promo stuff for. And he needs a voice actor who can come and just record on all these different microphones to put together this promo video. Are you interested? And I was like, well, I'm back in Salt Lake. He's like, oh yeah, it's tomorrow night in Burbank. And I said, you know what? Fine, let's do it. And I drove through the night to Burbank.
Wow.
Got to Burbank, 10 hours. Drove through the night, went into the studio with this guy. Turns out that the guy who was recording the commercial he's now a good friend of mine, but he was represented by the agency that was at the top of my list. Like that was the agency I wanted to book with. So I show up and we do this 3-hour session and I'm recording with this guy and meeting with this guy and he's loving what I'm doing and we're having fun. And I told him, hey, look, I'm interested in this top talent agency. And he's like, well, dude, after working with you, I'm happy to put in a good word for you. I was like, that'd be awesome. 2 weeks later, I got the email from the agency saying, so-and-so vouched for you. We want to bring you in. And I signed with the agency.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying everyone needs to go drive across the country overnight.
But maybe you do.
But maybe you do.
Yeah.
But maybe you need to take risks and say, this doesn't make sense to me right now. But if I'm thinking about it from a professional standpoint and a career standpoint, how can this be advantageous to me, or how can this help me as a person? And I sat there before driving out thinking, you know what? I can make this happen, and it'll be hard and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's an opportunity. And had I not taken that opportunity, I might not have signed with that agent.
Yeah. It's just this like tenacious, whatever it takes mentality that I love. And you look back, I mean, I look back at my life too, of like all these opportunities, and I'm just like, whatever it takes, I'll get on the airplane, I'll fly in tomorrow, as inconvenient as it might not even work. You got to roll the dice on yourself, especially.
Oh yeah.
And that's, I look back at some of the most magical experiences of growth for my brand has been, I look back at, like, for me, it was, I had just transitioned out of Vivint, and I had, I was going through really, after making tons of money, I was like feeling financial squeeze for the first time in my life. And I'm like, dang, what have I done? I was feeling shame and guilt and like, how did I blow all this? And I got invited to go do a mastermind. Gerard Adams was running it in California, and it was $5,000, and I had like $7,000 to my name. And I'm like, I can't even, and luckily, I just knew that I needed to go. I just had this feeling like, go to California, go do it. And so I spent $5,000 to get to first thing. And then I had to pay for flight. And so I paid for my flight, and then I had points for hotel. So I was able to get my hotel covered by points. But I remember getting there, and we go for the first meetup, and it was at the one hotel, and I was staying at the Audition with my points. And I'm like, I have to walk, 1.5 miles here, because I don't have $40 to spend on Uber.
Yeah.
Like I have to walk. Like I got here, but I have to walk to the event. And I got there, and I got to the event, and I met really great people, and I had like this mentorship, this one-on-one piece with Gerard. And he was like, dude, you got to get into coaching. Like you'd be a phenomenal coach. Like, you got to be the face of your brand. You've got to put yourself forward. You got to start doing more content, right? You've got this great skill of salesmanship. You could be a great mentor. And he was kind of the first person that like laid the map out for me of like, this is how you do it. And I'm like, I got to do this, And then I literally get home from that event with no money, and out of the blue, my first client ever hit me up. Just, Zaza hit me up and was like, hey man, can I pay you to be my mentor? Whereas before that event, I would have been like, what do you mean no?
Yeah, what do you
like,
mean? Yeah.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. But then it was just like, oh, here's the map where I played out like how you actually do it. And I was like, yeah, bring it on, And so he's like, how much do it cost? I'm like, I don't know, $5,000. He's like, cool, send it right over. And I'm like, holy crap.
It's like that Gary Vee clip, right?
Yeah.
When he gives the first quote and he's like, oh man, I should have gone up on that.
Yeah. And so it's just like such a testament of just like whoever takes the most action wins.
Yeah.
You've got to just send it. You got to just take the risk. You have to explore. You have to try all these different avenues. And, one thing that's cool about you is you've kind of built a foundation of voiceover, and which pays the bills. And now you have space to pursue other creative acts on that. And now, I knew this, but I didn't know this. Like now you teach at BYU right now, right?
Yeah. So I teach acting for film and television, adjunct. Like I'm not up full time because I want to keep building my craft. Like I want to keep working in this industry. But it's something that I tell people all the time. Like I can't complain about anything in life. I'm living my dream. I am acting as a full-time career. That's insane. I'm providing for a family of 7.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't complain about anything in life. Like, but what you said, building this foundation with voiceover has now allowed me to say, great. Now filmmaking, right? That ultimate dream it's kind of a dream, but that the idea of acting on camera is what, I'm really passionate about. And that's really what I want, is I can do that now because I've spent the time and the effort building up this ability to then say, well, yeah, now that I'm paying the bills with voiceover, I can go do acting jobs. I can leave for 5 days and be on set. I can go do a major film and come back, and everything's taken care of.
How did you get Mel on board for this?
Yeah. So my wife is also an actress
Yeah.
and a choreographer and a dancer. So like she understands the industry enough and is passionate enough that she gets it. She understands the passion. It's been hard. It's been really hard for her when I say, "Hey, I'm going to spend $1,000 on this microphone," and she's like, "We don't have $1,000 for a microphone. What do you mean?" And it's like, "Well, look, this is the industry standard that I need when I'm traveling to be able to book on the go to provide our lifestyle." And she's like, "Okay, I trust you. Like, if that's what we need for this industry, then or for your career, then let's do it." And for me, I had to research that and find out what I needed and then pull the trigger. So Melanie's been amazing in that there's been a lot of times where she's like, "I don't know if I agree with this, but like, you haven't let us down yet."
Yeah.
You know, like your fruits have shown, your
shows.
track record shows that you get the job done. And I think that's what she talks about as well, is she's like, "I know that if you lock in, you're locked in. Like it's going to get done. There's no room for failure because you're just like, no, I'm locked in." And so I think she's also taken that kind of stance of like, look, if you really think this is something we need, let's talk about it and work through the numbers and details. But ultimately, like, you haven't let us down yet. So
How do you guys navigate raising the kids? Do you guys do you guys sit down and be like, all right, these are, kind of the tasks I can take, and these are tasks you're going to take? Like, how do you divvy up raising 5 kids under the age of 11?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Melanie have really felt passionate about homeschooling. Like she's really felt passionate about that. And so she homeschools the kids and I work from home, which is great because when she's working throughout the day, if things get crazy or if something comes up, she can reach out to me and say, "Are you in a session? Are you working? Are you on a call? Like, do you have the ability to come help?" And 9 times out of 10, I can just walk out of my studio, go into the house, help wherever is needed. And so we haven't set any sort of like strict boundary other than like when I come in from the studio, I'm in the house.
Yep.
I'm not at work.
Yep.
Like I'm with the family, I'm with the kids. And so far it's worked really well in that she understands I'm working. And so she's going to try and solve the problem as best she can. But if she gets to a point where she needs help, it's not like, "Oh man, I don't want to reach out." It's like, "No,
Yeah.
I've reached the point where I need help. Can you come help?"
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds you guys have a pretty good flow there.
Yeah.
What's like the, you've accomplished so much. I mean, as far as voice acting is concerned, you've done some really, really big stuff. I know you got like a recent big deal with, I don't know if we can say it, but
I can't say it.
Yeah, I
yet.
can't
It's
say it,
still
but
NDA.
a couple big deals coming through that there's a high probability that if you're listening to this podcast, you've heard my brother's voice on some commercial somewhere along the lines. And so what's the vision for you now? Like, I know you just did your first movie a year ago and did awards. Is that kind of like the next big thing that gets you excited?
Yeah, I've got 2 major mileposts that I'm looking forward and ahead to. One of them is to voice the lead in an animated TV series. So that's what I'm working towards, and that opportunity comes often. Auditions come in all the time for these things, but there's so much out of your control. But then the second is I have 10 screenplays ready to go to make into films. And
When do you write these?
This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is when at 10:30 and everyone else has gone to bed and I'm like, I'm still wired and I've got this idea.
Yeah.
So I just start writing. And so it's very rare that I go to bed before 2 a.m.
It's insane.
I know, it's crazy. And with
I've
5
been,
kids,
I've been
it's
asleep
like,
by 5 hours at that point.
I love that so much. But it's my current methodology is if my body agrees with me, then I'm okay with it. And once my body says this isn't working, I shut it down. And so it's the same with sleep. I never push past tiredness.
Yeah.
For me, when my body says I'm tired, we're done, I shut it down and I go to bed. But right now, my body's like, yeah, we can do 2 a.m. You can sleep for 6 hours a night and be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if that's what you're saying, then let's do it. But I'm trying to be more hyper aware of just listening to my body. What does my body want? What is my body saying? Like, to be healthy. And I mean, right now I'm very healthy, which is great. That's a good thing. But back to what you were saying, this idea of directing another feature film is kind of on the forefront right now. Like, I'm trying to find ways to get money and to get investors and to get people into my head to see my vision of these films that I've written that I think are fantastic films that need to be made. And anyone will tell you the hardest part of making a movie is fundraising.
Yeah.
Like getting money to
Getting
make
people
a film
to buy it,
is
the vision.
just brutal. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And because obviously, you know, you've come a long way, but I'm sure along the way there was probably a lot of emotions of self-doubt.
Oh.
Were there ever times where you're like, hey, I'm just gonna throw it in and go get a real normal job, or like how did you navigate those times?
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
2 months ago, there was I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't get anything read by anyone. I couldn't get any of my film stuff to work. And there was a stretch of probably 3 weeks in December where I was like, you know, I wonder if I should just shut this whole film thing down. Shut it all down, walk away, just stick with voiceover and just move on. And what's funny is that the thing that kept coming back to me was my process for voiceover.
Yeah.
Was that there are long stretches where nothing happens in voiceover. And I go, man, maybe I shouldn't be doing voiceover. Maybe I do need a job. I mean, I had a 6-month stretch 2 years ago where no income came in.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm going, I gotta take another job.
Yeah.
I gotta quit. I gotta take care of my family. And then something happened at that 6 months and it paid for a few more months and then jobs kept coming. I mean, it's just constant imposter syndrome. Constant, like, I don't even know if I'm good enough for this. Like, why would anyone want to watch a movie I made? Why would anyone be interested in my art? But when you talk to any famous film director or any famous actor or anyone who's done anything, you know, big, that keeps coming back to, well, I just wanted to make what I wanted to make. And I just keep remembering, like, yeah, creativity and art is so subjective, but it's also so unique.
Yeah. How do you stay in that balance? Because there's like this thing of, you know, I do this as an entrepreneur too, of like, oh, this is the thing I want to build versus this is the thing that'll make me money. Right? How do you stay in that lane of creativity?
What I often see is that the big film directors who are making all these incredible films started with, I should make something that people are interested in. And what happened along the way, somewhere along the way, they went, I have to stop catering to what everyone else wants.
Yeah.
And I have to start doing what I want. And ultimately, what I've been learning is that to make money, you have to be good at what you do.
To be able to provide value.
Yeah, you have to provide value. And providing value can have two different views. Providing value could be, I'm making things that I know everyone wants and I'm really good at it. But it could also be, I'm incredibly unique in my skill set and I just want to do stuff I like, but I'm really good at it and the people will come. And I think you have those two different factions in the arts, is that you have people who go, I know I'm really good at doing this thing that everybody likes to see.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep doing it because I know they're going to pay for it, that's their thing.
Yeah.
But then you have this other group who says, I know what I'm doing and I know what I want. And if people want to come see it, they'll come see it. And they usually do.
Yeah. Yeah. What a unique balance. Cause it's like, even for me, like, I know like you and Jeff are into Marvel and, you know, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I never like got into it. And, you know, there's so many deep stories to whatever, but like, especially Marvel, no, not so much Lord of the Rings, but for Marvel, for me, it just kind of feels like copy and paste. And you know what the movie's going to be like. There's going to be big explosion. There's going to be a cool superhero moment, and someone's going to try and kill us, take over the world, and they're going to save it at the end, you know? And I just know that's what it's going to be. And I'm just like, for whatever reason, it doesn't catch to me.
Yeah.
But then I'll love like a really weird abstract movie. And, you know, I've got a buddy, Julian, shout out Julian, who's big time into film. And I'll ask him like, Julian, what's your favorite movies? And he'll like name these 5 movies that no one has ever heard of that are super abstract too. And it's just like goes to show that there is like, if you share kind of the creativity in the space that you want to create, like there is an audience out there for it and someone will like it, you know. And I even look at like my business now, it's like a combination of like kind of this great grind, personal development, hustle culture, but also like deep spirituality and connection and emotional well-being. And then throwing them together, no one ever thought that'd be a thing, but you know, it seems like it's unfolding.
Yeah.
And so when as you are like, hey, I want to do more films, what is wanting to come out of your creation, like within you, like your inspiration, your creativity, what is wanting to come out? How would you like, label or define your unique creative style or voice.
Yeah. When I can watch a film and go on an emotional journey, that to me is such a powerful thing, to have people feel emotions. Because I feel like nowadays, a lot of the distractions we have are purposefully aimed at getting us away from feeling things. If things are too hard, if things are too difficult, if we're feeling too close to our emotions, we want to distance ourselves. And I am a firm believer that we need to feel all the emotions, and we need to allow ourselves to feel these emotions. So for me, if I can create a film that people can watch and feel like I love to feel during films, that to me is a success. People feeling real human emotion and connecting to the real story of life on camera is a powerful, powerful tool. And that's what I want to do. I want people to have a moment feeling things while watching a story.
So do you have like an emotional goal through these movies?
Ooh, I don't know if I have a goal for emotions, but I have a goal for story arc and character creation, and I want you to follow the journey, because I know that everyone's going to see things differently, like you with Marvel, right? Like you watch those and you go, yeah, whatever. But I've seen some Marvel movies where I go, holy cow, that was impactful.
Yeah.
Everyone's subjective, everyone's different. So I don't want to shape people's emotions. I want people to watch my stories and have whatever emotions they want to have and whatever experiences they want to have, and recognize that and enjoy it.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about writing a screenplay for you?
First draft.
First draft. What do you mean?
Getting a first draft done of a screenplay is one of the hardest things to do, because you have to have a start, a middle, and an end. And typically what happens is people start writing and they write all these things, and pretty soon you've got 200 pages of just things. But putting together a first draft that has a beginning and a journey that goes, and then it wraps it up at the end within the parameters of a screenplay, which is typically 90 to 120 pages. Having that is hard.
Yeah.
Because you have to know where the story's going and where the characters are going and how they got there and all of those things. And granted, some people do that in further drafts, but just getting that first draft, the number of people who I talk to who are like, oh man, I just have this great idea for a movie. And I'm like, why haven't you written it? Well, it's so hard to just write a script. And I'm like, yeah, well, do it. Write it.
Yeah.
First draft.
Yeah. I think, who was it? Wrote Big Magic. Oh my gosh, drawing a blank on her name. Elizabeth Gilbert. Is it Elizabeth Gilbert? Anyways, she talks about your shitty first draft. Like you have to get a really bad first piece out.
Just get it out.
You have to get it done. And I think that's such a great metaphor of life. It's just most people aren't willing to do the first part.
Yeah.
They're not willing to finish it. And I think, your story of your growth within your creative expression is such a great metaphor of life, of just like, no one knows what's going on. I don't know what's going on. But I'm going to try. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to fully dig my heels in. I'm going to participate. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to drive to California in the middle of the night, right? Just to fully, I really believe that whatever your word is, God or the universe responds to effort.
100%.
If you put in the effort, if you show up all out, taking the risk, jump off the cliff, you get rewarded in ways you can possibly predict.
Yeah.
And how it unfolds. And so, but the willingness to go all out and do the shitty first draft and lay it out, and actually willing to do that, and then you can build on that foundation, I think is the hardest part of it.
Oh yeah.
Of the whole thing. It's so much easier because how many drafts will a movie go through?
Oh,
hundreds, right?
It's insane. Yeah. Like my first feature film had 16 drafts, and that was just for me as a novice. That was my first feature film I'd ever written.
Yeah.
Like I'm confident that there would be more, but that's how many drafts we had. I love what you said about God and the universe, because the two quotes that I typically find myself coming back to are, first, God loves effort. I love that. And second, process is product for the Lord. And I'm like, process is product. Like, it's not just what you accomplished. Like I made a feature film. That's cool, whatever. The process of creating that feature film gave me more information, more confidence, more knowledge, more understanding, more ability than the actual film could have ever given me.
Yeah, you learn by doing.
Oh man.
I mean, it's that stupid, corny, cheesy quote of like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But like, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's 100% true of like who you become in the process of doing something for the first time that's hard and scary and unknown is way more valuable than the thing you receive at the end.
Yeah.
Like, not even question.
Yeah.
You know, I look back at, you know, my Vivint days of literally being 20 years old, thrown into Houston, Texas in July. It's 110 degrees, 100% humidity, right? I've got a notebook. I'm in a random neighborhood, knocking doors for 12 hours, right? I learned more in that process of like perseverance and knocking and salesmanship than, you know, it was way more valuable than the paycheck I got at the end of the summer, right? Like I would never trade my door-to-door experience for anything, because you can't buy that experience. The only way is you just have to go through it.
Yeah.
You just have to just go through the pain and the suffering and the overwhelm and the stress and the panic and the fear and the emotional roller coaster of, is this going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. And just staying in it gives you way more. It's just a way bigger gift than anything you'd ever receive at the end. And then what it does when you get to the end, the next thing you do, you move it through so much more smoothly and with more space and more creative genius, because you kind of know the space a little bit, you know what you're doing. And now you can add on top of it.
Yeah. And what's fascinating too is like you were saying, the number of people who have asked me for coaching, or who are like, can you do private coaching? Can you teach me? Like, can you share with me? All I can share is you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
The number of people who I've told, like, if you just put in the work, I'm right here to help you succeed. I'll help you get going in voiceover. And of the hundreds of students that I've had for voiceover that I've taught, the ones who have like used me as a resource and put in the work, they're all getting paychecks for voiceover.
Yeah.
Which is like 4.
Yeah.
No one's putting in the work.
Most people, it's just the analogy of like the push-ups. You know, it's like, I want to get better at push-ups. And most people, a lot of people, not most, a lot of people will go buy new workout clothes. They'll watch YouTube videos. They'll listen to the podcast on the best push-up guy ever. They'll read the book, right? They'll do data analysis. They'll create a spreadsheet of doing push-ups. Like, if you want to get better at push-ups, there's only one way to do it. You can't pay anybody to do your push-ups for you.
Yeah.
Right? You can't hack your way into it. You just have to just give down and do push-ups, right? Yeah. And it's just a common theme that comes up, in my coaching a lot too, of people like, okay, tell me the secret recipe to, for sales. Like,
go sell.
You just have to go grind your face on cement for 6 months straight. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my years in sales. I always looked up to Doug so much growing up when he was doing all his sales stuff. And I was like, man, I wish I could do that. And so my first 4 years of marriage, when I told myself I'm not going to be a professional actor because there's no money in it and I'm not going to do that. And what was interesting is the people who were telling me not to do that weren't in the arts.
Sure. Right.
They were all just like, oh, you'll never make money in the arts.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it. Dude, get a big boy job, get a real job. So I went out and started doing some sales, and I had enough charisma and charm that I could do a little bit and I could make ends meet, but I never got to the level that you and others have achieved where you understand people and you connect with people. For me, I always was so full of anxiety and concern that I never reached that level. But in the 4 years, I made some improvements, but not enough because I wasn't passionate about sales. I wasn't interested.
You weren't eating cement every day.
I wasn't eating cement every day. It was literally just like at a desk calling people, cold calling, 200 calls a day. And so when I found that I loved the grind of the performing arts, when I loved auditions, even if I will submit anywhere from 160 to 200 auditions a month for voiceover. I'll book 3, maybe 4. And that's a high booking percentage in this industry. Like, you have to love the process.
You have to love, you're getting rejected 97% of the time.
You have to love getting rejected, which in sales, I should have learned how to do because I'm doing the same thing in the performing arts world.
Yeah.
But when I learned that like every audition is like, we often say this in the performing arts world, is that the audition is the job. because that's what you're doing the majority of the time is you're auditioning 90% of your career. The other 10% is the actual being on set and getting paid to be an actor.
Yeah.
So if you don't fall in love with auditioning and fall in love with just the process of being an actor, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, you got to learn to love the reps. Reminds me of that quote from Mark Cuban that says, don't follow your passions, follow your effort. Right? Because your effort is a kind of symbolic of the things you love to do. And if you love to do something and you do it again and again and again and again and again and again, eventually you'll become good at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he goes, don't follow your passion, follow your effort. What do you love to do? Right? It sounds like exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Right? And if you continuously put forth more effort on top of effort, you get better, you refine. And as you get better, right, then you can provide more value and then you'll get some wins. You know, you're submitting 160 voiceover auditions a month and getting 3, right? Most people aren't willing, you know, I mean, I keep saying most people, but you have to learn to get over the fact that 90% of your life is going to be rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one of the greatest skills and actually gifts, one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, is the willingness to feel embarrassed and rejected.
Oh, it's so crucial that you allow yourself to feel that and recognize that it's not a bad thing. Rejection's not a bad thing.
And feeling embarrassed isn't a bad thing.
Feeling embarrassed isn't a bad thing. It's totally normal. Like it's so funny to me because when I teach over at BYU, I give them 3 pillars for the class. 1, communication. Communication number 1. If you just communicate on set, if you communicate as an actor, if you talk to the director, talk to people, clear things up, you're going to be fine. Communication number 1. Number 2, thrive in failure, because you're going to make mistakes all the time and you're going to feel embarrassed all the time. But if you just know that and recognize it and know that that's not a bad thing, that embarrassment and failure aren't negative things. They're just learning opportunities. Once that clicked in my mind, once I learned, oh, actually, it's okay to make a ton of mistakes and feel embarrassed because that's what motivates me to change. Cool. Everything changed. Door was wide open. And third was know your role. Your role is to show up on set, do your job as an actor, and go home. That's your job. And when I learned that about embarrassment and about failure, holy smokes, it was game over. I could do anything now because I knew, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes and that's good. And I'm going to be embarrassed and that's good.
That's going to make for a really good Instagram clip.
Oh,
that was a great analogy. I loved it. So it was, 3rd was know your role. 2, be willing.
Thrive in failure.
Thrive in failure. And then the first was communication. Man, I mean, you could break that down and give it to any job, any relationship, anything you're trying to build, and can kind of create those building blocks. I work with a lot of people one-on-one, and this fear of failure is the number 1 killer of success. And it's a fear of failure, but it's also a fear of what will other people think about me because I failed.
Yeah.
And that I think might be even sometimes in some cases a bigger reason why people don't know. It's less about the business failing and more about what will people think about me if I screwed up, if I don't make it, or if I start posting about myself on Instagram. And it's funny, man, I look back at some of my Instagram posts from 5 years ago. So bad. They're so cringy. I'll every now and then I'll find one and I'll be secretly deleting it. Delete. But it's so true. You have to be willing to be embarrassed. You have to be willing to absolutely suck. You have to be willing to do a really shitty first draft. And that I think is that's a majority of the success formula.
Yeah.
And most people just aren't willing to do that. And
which is mind-boggling to me because when you look at anyone who is at the top of their game, at some point, they made a fool of themselves and didn't know what they were doing and had no idea where to go and what to do and looked like an idiot. Every single person you respect, admire, look at, anything, they all had to go through that. Everyone.
Yeah.
No one's excused from that.
So I'll share this with you. Something that I say to myself when I catch my imposter syndrome creeping in, whether it's it's social media post or doing an event or a speaking gig, I'll say to myself, nobody cares more than me.
Love that.
And so if I can minimize the magnitude of how big I'm making this experience, right? It actually makes the experience, whatever I'm presenting so much smoother. I had a speaking gig recently, a big stage, and I was starting to feel a little nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Yeah. And I'm like, no one cares more than me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can choose not to care that much. Not that I'm not going to provide value.
Oh, of course.
But I'm lowering the stakes.
But you don't have to make it the most world-shattering,
No.
world-ending thing ever. You just go, no, this is important, and I'm excited to be here.
I'm going to do my best.
Yeah.
And if I give a average presentation, people aren't going to remember in a week.
Yeah.
No one's going to care in a week. No one's going to even remember. And it was actually funny because it actually ended up being one of my best presentations ever. And people like from other rooms were coming over, and we were like standing room only, and there was like 7 people deep. And it was because I had this mentality of just like, stakes are low. It's okay. I can handle this. I'm just going to give it my best. And if people like it, that's fine. If I'm embarrassed, that's fine. Right. But I'm just going to be able, and what happens is when you can get to that state, it allows you to become unblocked, and you can just get into this. I don't know about you. So like when you're like writing a screenplay and it just comes to you and you can just, time disappears. That's what happens to me when I'm speaking on stage. Like I'll get up on stage and I'll speak, and I can literally, like, I float out of my body, and then the speech will be over, and I'm like, I have no idea what I said.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Yeah.
And so it's like finding that flow state and letting it just absolutely just flow through you, I think is where a lot of the magic happens.
When I think that you find that flow state in the mental preparation, like you said, this is a thing that I do before I perform. Anytime I'm about to go on stage, anytime the cameras are about to roll, I remind myself, the time for preparation has ended. So here I am. I just tell myself that. I just say, look, you don't worry about what's going to happen, because you've prepared and you're here. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You can't, like you were saying, I can't make it a big deal. I can't try to hype myself up and say, well, I want this to be perfect. Like, I'm here now and the cameras are going to start rolling, and there's nothing I can do other than what I've prepared, and I've prepared. So I'm just going to trust we're going to be good here. And that calming sensation that I give myself before I go on stage or before the cameras start rolling, 9 times out of 10 will always yield and cut. Wow. Yeah, I think that went great. You know, like it just, I feel okay. I feel relaxed. I feel calm. It wasn't this is such a big performance, I've got to nail it. It's like, no, you did your homework. You did your research. You're prepared. Just relax. Just trust yourself. Trust your instincts.
Yeah, do the nerves ever come before filming?
Always.
Or over, like, because you do some big presentations in front of a lot of people. You've presented at the Tabernacle in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. What's that like before showtime?
Yeah, there's a special kind of nervousness that happens before a live presentation. And I think it's different between keynoting and performing.
Yeah.
There's just a different sense. So like I did the keynote for That's Voiceover, the big voiceover conference out in LA last November. And that felt easier to me because I was just connecting to life experience, which I could talk about life experience all day. Like I don't need to train for that. Whereas when I was performing in front of 22,000 people at the LDS Conference Center Theater downtown, I had a role that I'd prepared and lines that I'd prepared. And like, there was something that I had to do in a certain way. And so the nerves before that are much more heightened because it's like, I want to make sure I do this right. Whereas keynoting or public speaking, it's more of what does the audience need and how can I be open to that? So there's a difference between them, but it's nerve-wracking when you're standing backstage and you hear the rumble of the 22,000 people who are out there in their seats, and then the music starts and the lights go down, and you know if you don't walk out on that stage, nothing's going to happen. Like, I thrive for that. I live for that.
Are you present in those moments, or are you more like in a flow state? Do you like remember it? Are you like in depth? Because for me, when I do a big speaking gig, I almost like I'm not there. Like something comes through me.
I am much more Wayne Gretzky, where everything slows down and I'm hyper aware. Someone was talking about Wayne Gretzky when he was on the ice, and it's like, why do you make it look so easy? And he's like, well, everything just slows down. And that's how he talked about his flow state, where it just felt like everything was slower. And so he could just easily do everything better. When I'm on stage, I am aware of everything, hyper aware. I can see the people in the seats. I know where the lights are. I know how loud the microphone is. I know who's backstage. I know where I am on stage. And so as these things are coming out and as I'm doing it, it's almost like I am leaving my body a little bit, but then I'm also aware of everything that's going on. It's almost like I check in on myself while I'm going and like, okay, is everyone listening? Is everyone aware? Lights are all on. Yep, we're still good. And then I come back to myself. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm thinking back to my keynote I gave a week ago, and I'm so attuned to the audience, like their facial expressions. I know who's paying attention.
Yep.
I know, and I can actually pull people into it energetically.
Yep.
I can move my energy, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna give some energy over here to bring you into this, and kind of like it's like an art. It's definitely like an art piece that's happening.
Yes.
But for me, it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
Like I'll be speaking, but also energetically tuning into the room and kind of connecting, see what's going on. But I'm also saying the right words that are on the slides. And I'll never forget the guy in the room gave me the 10-minute sign. And I'm like, there's no way I only have 10. Like it'd been 50 minutes. I'm like, there's no way. I've been on the stage for 15 minutes. There's no way it's 50.
Time just.
And I was just like so confused. And so I had to like, hustle through some slides. But yeah, there's this weird thing that happens in that flow state where my physical words are saying something for the presentation, but my mind can think of other things while it's still,
Yes.
and it doesn't make any sense. It's like your brain splits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly how my flow state goes.
Yeah.
It's almost like I can rise above my body and see myself giving the keynote.
Same.
But then I'm also hyper aware of what's happening. And it's like, okay, I can tell they're losing a little bit of interest. So let's energize over here. I can see that the doors are open, so it's a little loud. Maybe I should take up my volume a little bit, maybe increase the volume a little because it's too loud, it's too quiet right now, and like manage while I'm in it. Yeah.
I do the same thing.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Like every time, and it's funny, I remember giving a presentation a couple months ago where I just had never found that flow state. And I was very like, it felt like a very normal human being conversation. And I'm like, that wasn't even that good. And everyone's like, it was good. I'm like, no, but like it wasn't that good because I never found that thing. And it's funny how it's like almost if you can surrender and like find the flow state and let it take over, it's actually increases the quality of performance, at least for me.
I imagine being a stand-up comic is very similar, but brutal. Like that's the one thing when people say like, what do you think is the hardest thing to do?
Dude, stand-up's gotta be the hardest thing.
Stand up there in front of people and literally just throw out jokes and hope they laugh. That's rough. But I imagine that the best comics are able to get into this flow state where they can just feel.
They're going to tune to it.
They just tune into the audience and they go, keep pushing this idea. Okay, we'll stay on this idea and we'll just keep pushing this idea and wait for, okay, I guess they've moved on. Let's pivot.
Yeah.
I guarantee the best comics out there, they can just feel that and just go with it.
Yeah. Stand-up's got to be the hardest thing.
Oh,
there's no way I could do. I mean,
no,
I could, but it'd be just a lot. I don't want to put in the effort levels.
It'd be brutal.
Effort levels to that. Well, brother, thank you for coming on, man. This has been exciting. Just a really powerful conversation on resilience. And just like the biggest takeaway for me is just like, take the freaking risk, get in your freaking car, drive to California for 10 hours, like
Yep.
do 10,000 reps every month, 160 auditions per month, just shots on goal, more shots on goal. One's going to hit.
I've done more than 10,000 voiceover auditions in my life.
It's insane. And there's a reason why
I'm making a living doing it.
So anyways, love you, brother. Thanks for being on.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.